Greetings and welcome to Woodshed Wisdom, a place where I share my thoughts, insights, and revelations on issues that affect all of us. Well, greetings and welcome to my woodshed. I got woken up this morning about 4 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep, so I decided to have a conversation with the Lord. And I was asking Him about my wanting to know what the future was holding for the world, and to know if I'm prepared for my family, to protect them, and to just kind of a general hunger for wanting to know what's in, what's going on, where are we at, what to expect. And seemed like legitimate questions, actually. uh, Being the patriarch of my family, it seemed like, yeah, wouldn't you want to know what you need to do to provide and protect? And these are some tumultuous times, not just here in Ozarks, but around the world. In some places, much more tumultuous. I mean, I live out in the middle of a forest, and it's pretty quiet where I live, to be frank about it. But that being said, um, so I said, knowledge. Maybe you should do a little study. So I did. I decided to actually look into knowledge, and following the typical first mention protocols, I went to Genesis 2, chapter or verse 9. And here's what it says. And I do most of my study and reading out of the Ancient Roots Translinear Bible, frankly, because it was directly translated from the ancient Hebrew scrolls and from the Aramaic scrolls in the New Testament. This isn't an amalgamation of different translations to different languages. This is a singular translation from the original scrolls as it was written using the original words. And sometimes it doesn't actually flow as eloquently as other translations, but I find it to be edifying to me. Let's put it that way. So in verse 9, in the second chapter of Genesis, Yahweh God sprouted from the earth all trees desirable in appearance and good for meat. The tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So I'm thinking, knowledge, yeah. It also says, in that was verse 9, I think it's later on in the second chapter, that's when God told Adam that that was forbidden to not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So anyway, I got to digesting the word knowledge and how it relates to my life, and what does it mean to the life of a believer. And again, I got up at 4, so I've been awake for a while. So I was in there making coffee, and I heard the Lord say, knowledge puffs up. And I thought, yeah, it does. So I went back to my Ancient Roots Translinear Bible, and in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, starting with verse 1, this is how it reads. About the sacrifice of idols, we know that knowledge exists in all of us. Knowledge is arrogant, but love builds. If a man expects he knows something, he knows not a thing yet, just what is appropriate for him to know. If a man has loved God, this one has knowledge from him. And we know that the Lord will grant us a word of knowledge. He does that to me all the time. I expect he does it to most people if they're if they're listening, if they're tuned in. But you read in Proverbs, and I didn't bother to look it up because it's woven through many of the Proverbs, also elsewhere in Scripture. But it talks about seeking wisdom and understanding. And I'd already done studies years ago on wisdom and understanding. To give you an example, when I was a young boy, I would help out on my grandfather's farm, which is about when I was a real little guy, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. I would, his farm was about 40 miles north of here, northeast, or it was. And we would get up about 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd go milk cows, feed the hogs, and get whatever machinery we were going to use that day, we'd get it ready. Well, I had a knowledge knowing that, well, we were going to use this tractor and this cultivator and this disc or this hay mower or not a combine, but a baler or whatever we were going to use that day. I didn't, I had the wisdom to know that we were going to use these pieces of equipment, but I didn't have any understanding why. Why is it today we're going to go out and cultivate corn? What's so special about today? And so when you have wisdom without understanding, you know how to do things, you don't know why you're doing them. And when you have understanding, you understand that this is why we're doing this today. And oftentimes we will have knowledge. And so in the course of the morning, as I was going through all this, trying to understand what the Lord was telling me about knowledge specifically, it was troubling, when you read that knowledge is arrogant. And I thought, yeah. So I started thinking about my own life, and there's very little that I cannot fix. I've worked with my hands most of my life. I can do electronic repair. I can weld. I can fabricate. I can do auto repair. I can build houses. I've built multi-million-dollar buildings. There's not a lot that I don't know how to do. I would say that I'm a jack of all trades, so to speak, and a master of none. That's a bit archaic nowadays. Everybody's a specialist. In this moment of self-reflection this morning, I came to realize that all of this knowledge that I've sought all my life was really for me to convince myself that I had value and that I was just somebody. I would learn how to do things, and I always took great satisfaction in the fact that some people would appreciate it and give me compliments and stroke my ego because I could do so many different things. People would say, I've never seen anybody who could do so many different things, knew how to work on so many different things. And naturally you would, that would stroke your ego. You'd feel real good about yourself. Well, looking back on it, all of that stuff was well and good, except it wasn't for the Lord. It had nothing to do with serving the Lord. It had everything to do with building myself up, which it says right there in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, that knowledge is arrogant. And there's not much humility involved. And oftentimes you'll encounter people who have this opinion of themselves that they are so knowledgeable and they don't mind flaunting it. But in reality, it's just, it comes down to it's all about them. And so there's a glaring absence of wisdom and understanding. And so I just want to share that with you, that I encourage you to do some personal self-reflection on just how valuable is your quest for more knowledge, as opposed to your ambition to become wise, filled with understanding, so that you can actually be a benefit to yourself and those around you, and you gain no credit to yourself, but to the Lord who brought you to this. So until next time, stay tuned. If you like this, share it. You can see us on various different platforms, but we're going to try and do these real regular. So welcome to my woodshed, and we'll see you later.